It's really great to be here. I'm really excited to share what's new with Flutter 2.0 and what are we going to learn today. Today we will be learning what Flutter is, how it works, and actually how it behaves. And in addition to this, we will go through what are the latest changes and updates, what were the changes actually in the latest Flutter event. And last but not least, we will do some live demo. We will create a new project from scratch. We will go through some code. We will write some code. And at the end, if you have any questions, I will try my best to answer them. So what is Flutter and how it behaves is something that we are going to be learning today. So let me tell you a bit about myself. I'm Salih. I am working as a senior software engineer at a company called Superlist, and we are making our product in Flutter actually, and we are highly focused on desktop right now. I am a Google developer expert on Flutter and Dart. That means that I'm one of the accredited people by Google about Flutter and Dart technologies. I love community work. I have founded 2 communities. One of them is Flutter Turkey, and another one is Flutter Berlin. And I try to organize events there, like conferences, meetups with my great teammates. And I also write blog posts, I make videos. You can see me all around the Flutter making videos and stuff, talking at the conferences, etc. Maybe I met you in some conference, who knows? Anyway, so what is Flutter? I'm sure a lot of people have heard about it before, but I just want to reiterate it briefly. It is Google's UI toolkit. That means that it is Google's SDK for creating beautiful apps on mobile, web, and desktop. What makes Flutter special? You write the code once. You don't need to share the code with other platforms and write another native code left and right. You write the code once, and it helps you to deploy the code to the different platforms like iOS, Android, and many more that we are going to be talking about soon. What makes Flutter special is something that everyone asks, and I can just collect everything that makes Flutter special under these 3 categories. One of them is Dart. Dart is a language that has been developed by Google, and this language is a special language because originally it was a web language, but right now it works all around. You can create command line applications, you can create web applications, and you can create mobile applications. In addition to this, you can communicate with low-level platforms by using Dart's FFI tool. So Dart is something special that it shows capabilities all around. In addition to this, Dart has some extra special features like ahead-of-time compilation and just-in-time compilation. What do we mean by these? Ahead-of-time compilation is something that helps you to actually generate native code. So it helps you to create native applications. So it takes your Dart code, translates into something native. Just-in-time compilation is that when you write some code, new code, it directly connects to your virtual machine and actually helps you to update your code base, update your application in time. Thanks to the just-in-time compilation, we have something called hot reload. What do we mean by hot reload? We will be making some changes in our code, and when we save it, it will instantly show in our application. So there is something really special, and we will be learning about it during the live coding as well. In addition to this, we have something called Skia. Skia is a special graphics engine, and it has been actually developed by the Google's web team that has worked on V8 engine. And if you haven't heard about V8 engine, it is Chrome's revolutionary graphics engine to help you out with web and how it worked back in the days. And they just took that engine, got rid of everything related to web, and in core basis, they have realized that this engine was processing images or processing pixels really, really good. So they turned this into a graphics engine, and Flutter is based on this. What is the advantage of having your graphics engine, you might ask? The answer is, when you have your own graphics engine, it will be helping you to create your own views easier, because you will have what you're processing from, and everything that you're going to be creating will go through that filter, and that filter will be working for you. So this will be helping you. And thanks to its amazing performance, Flutter has 60 frames per second guaranteed animation rate. If you have the device, it can go even higher. And lastly, Flutter is native. What do we mean by this? Actually, we will go through this here directly so you can understand it better. So when you create a Flutter application, this Flutter application is created by your relative platform. This platform has their own native application, and it will just provide Flutter a canvas to draw on. What you're going to do will be, you will write your Dart code. This Dart code will be rendered through your graphics engine. This graphics engine will be talking to the device's GPU, and this way you will be drawing to the canvas. And thanks to this canvas and this communication, you won't have any problems with performance. How Flutter works is something around this. You have the device, it doesn't matter, it can be iOS, Android, or many more. And one of these gives you a canvas, basically an empty space, and you will be drawing on that with your Dart code. You will be just getting this canvas and drawing on it. In addition to this, you can subscribe yourself to the events that is happening on the canvas. What do we mean by events? These are taps, right clicks, double clicks, and long clicks, and many more can be addressed back to us by the platform. And this way, we can actually understand what's going on the canvas. And lastly, we need to understand that when we write applications, we need to have some platform-specific information, right? And by this, we need to have information about the device. And thankfully, with Flutter's platform channels, you can actually have that. What do we mean by this? By platform channels, you are creating logical bridges between your platform and your Dart code. And this way you can communicate forward and backwards with the platform. So you can send data, and also you can receive data. But you might be wondering, do I have to write all the time some native code if I want to, for example, check out the camera? But you don't need to. Thankfully, Flutter team and the Flutter community had created packages for almost everything that you might be needing. So you would just put the package, write the Dart code, and rest will be handled by the packages for you. So you can have access to Bluetooth, sensors, camera, audio, and many more by simply using the packages that has been provided to you by the Flutter team. And we will see some of these in the following minutes. When you go deeper in how Flutter works is, you can see that there are three main sections. One section is framework. That is the upper level, higher level. This is written by Dart. And Dart language is just creating everything for you with the layered architecture. There's a foundation, above that there's animation, text rendering, and widget rendering. Lastly, the place that you will be actually interacting from, material part and Cupertino part. Underneath this, we have, Skia engine, but at the same time, our SDK needs an engine to actually use the Dart properly, have the rendering happening properly, so they can communicate with lower level systems in our devices. That is why there's an engine segment that is written with C and C++, and this is doing basically everything that is going in the heavy lifting behind the scenes. And last but not least, as I said, we have a tiny dependency to the platform, and this dependency needs to be delivered to us somehow, and that is the embedder part. We are using this embedder part to get the information that we need from the platform itself. So Flutter actually is a new and old project at the same time. What do we mean by this? In 2014, the project Sky started. So Flutter's first name was actually Sky. And the project was basically aiming on Android first, just as a proof of concept. And as time goes by, they saw the potential in this project and what it promises, because it was promising to be native, but at the same time to be performant. So they've seen the competitors and they thought, okay, maybe we can do something different to give another option to the people. And in 2018, at the Mobile World Congress in, I think, Barcelona, they announced Flutter Beta. And in the same year, at the 4th of December 2018 in London, they announced Flutter 1.0. With Flutter 1.0, they were announcing web and mobile for Flutter itself. But it's not the end of the story. Recently, at the 3rd of March, they announced Flutter 2. And this is where things started to get even more excited. So Flutter was already supporting iOS and Android for us. So it was doing what it's supposed to do really, really good. Everything was going perfectly. What they wanted to do more, what they wanted to achieve more was they wanted to give more platforms to the people. So they started to work on web support, and they announced web support at 2019 Google I/O. And they announced desktop support last year. And at the Flutter Engage event, they were preparing a lot of things. First thing was, first I will go through some non-technical highlights, and lastly I will go through technical highlights, and I will show you how important they are. So non-technical highlights, first of all, inside Google, more than 30 teams uses Flutter. You can see Google Pay, Google Ads, Nest Hub, Cloud Search, and many more that is written. Some of them are written here, but there are many more. In addition to this, bigger companies like Toyota and Microsoft and Canonical, which actually created Ubuntu, had decided to use Flutter for their products. Toyota decided to use it not for only their multi-platform promises, but also for embedded systems. So inside the car, the entertainment system that you're going to be seeing in Toyota cars will be written in Flutter. And the main reason for that is what it promises behind the scenes for beautiful UIs and performance. In addition to this, if you are a developer and if you don't have a MacBook, probably you would be using some Linux distribution. And one of the most famous and mostly used Linux distribution is Ubuntu. Ubuntu is created by a company called Canonical, and Canonical decided to use Flutter to have their own Ubuntu installer. So when you want to try out Ubuntu on your machine, you will be actually having a Flutter application to try it out. Also, the installation progress is happening with Flutter's Flutter-created desktop installer. And last but not least, Microsoft part. When you hear Microsoft, you might be wondering about Xamarin and blah, 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 but actually, Microsoft had invested in Flutter to be supporting the Surface Duo 2 devices. This is one of the devices that I am really looking forward to. It's a foldable device, and it is using Android behind the scenes, as far as I remember. And it has a lot of proof of concepts behind the scenes to actually work with Flutter and have a direct support inside it to be able to run Flutter applications if it changes or something. So when you think with the numbers, the biggest announcement was Flutter 2.0. And with Flutter's increase, we had Dart 2.12, and we will see what does these two mean. And the biggest, and for me, most important one was they announced 6 platforms. They have direct support for Android, iOS, and web, also macOS, Linux, and Windows. And lastly, I think this is a really important number. They were closing down a lot of issues in GitHub, because one of the things that people got worried about was, oh, okay, Flutter has a lot of issues and there are some things that they don't care about, but this is actually wrong. They have closed more than 6,000 issues in the last quarter. And people are using Flutter. It has more than 120,000 stars on GitHub. When people use something, they ask for something, and not everyone is capable about asking the right questions in the right space. So numbers shouldn't, in the issue numbers shouldn't mislead you. There are actually a lot of things that are already closed behind the scenes. From the technical side, so Flutter for Web is in the stable now. So what do we mean by stable? Now they say that it is ready for production. It is missing some stuff, so it is not ready for all scenarios. So let's be clear on this, but it is ready for production. You can use it in your single page projects or PWAs. Also, macOS, Windows, and Linux are now in stable channel, but they are not stable yet. So you can get releases for these. You can get actually important, you can actually create products out of it, which is what we do in my company. But it is still under early release flag, so they need to still work on some stuff, and which they are doing it already. From the Dart perspective, there is no safety now. As you know, if you come from Android or so, from coming from Java to Kotlin was something really amazing, because now you were say goodbye to null pointer exceptions, and now sound no safety is part of Dart ecosystem, meaning Flutter as well. All Flutter ecosystem is migrated to the no safety now. In addition to this, now Dart FFI is stable. What do we mean by Dart FFI? Dart FFI is a tool or library or the segment of the Dart language that you can use to communicate between C or lower level languages. This way you can actually write Dart code and communicate or write embedded systems, and it is stable now. And another point is, if you are learning Dart or Flutter, or if you're trying out something, you might be using, or you might already heard about Dartpad Dev. This is a website that you can just try out Dart stuff or Flutter stuff and see it directly. And one good thing about this is this project, this website has been rewritten with Flutter, and it uses Flutter for good. So I was talking about packages before. I was telling that you might be having already what you need by the package, and I wasn't lying about this, because on pub.dev, which is the library tool or like library website, you can think it as the JCenter, for example, or NPM for web, now has more than 15,000 packages for multiple purposes. So you can actually create these packages directly. You can actually use these packages directly out of the box for your own projects. Now, enough talking. Let's do some live coding. So what are we going to do now? First, we will be creating a Flutter project. In the meantime, the Flutter project gets created. I will show you some important tips and tricks and like some important keywords for the Flutter SDK that is installed to our device. If you haven't installed Flutter yet, it's all good. There's a lot of tools out there like Flutter Version Manager, Flutter Installer, and so on. You can use this, And these tools will be helping you out to install Flutter directly without having any extra trouble. Okay, so I will try to, first I will create a new project. You can use Android Studio, IntelliJ IDEA, or VS Code for creating your project. So which platform you're coming from, it doesn't matter. But what matters is you just pick the tool that you need the most and you just use it for your own purposes. So you just create a new project. In your IntelliJ, I will be using IntelliJ now. In your IntelliJ, you can just click on next. And you need to just first of all select the name of the project. I will say KTalks live coding. We can pick whatever we want. In addition to this, there's a description of the project. You can either leave it empty or you can just fill out like 1 or 2 sentences. One thing that is important while you create your project is the organization part, because organization means that you need to have a domain while you deploy your applications to App Store or Google Play Store. And your domain needs to be unique. And this unique part comes in handy here. So you need to write it down like dev.salih. And this organization will take the project name, combine them together, and actually create me an application ID if I want to deploy it someday. Lastly, you can pick the language and the platforms that you want to support, and then click finish, and this will be creating the project for you. In the meantime, it creates the project. Okay, just a second. I will get back to this soon. But first, let me go through the terminal. So if you want to check that if you already installed Flutter correctly, what you need to write is Flutter doctor and maybe like -v so you can see the detailed information about this. So you can see that all the necessary information, all the platform necessities for your application is already here. Right now, it shows that I'm using Flutter 2.6.0. I'm on something called stable channel, and I'm using the Dart version 2.12.3. What do I mean by channel? If you write Flutter channel, it will actually show you 4 options: master, dev, beta, and stable. These 4 options are helping you to actually keep track of what's going on behind the scenes with Flutter. If you need, for example, a fix, but it hasn't landed yet to your stable channel, you can change, and so on. But what does each mean? Let's learn about them. First of all, the master means that every change that has been merged into the main branch will be part of master. So you will be having constant and instant updates to your Flutter SDK probably every day. What does dev means is it is like the master, but all the tests and all the possible Q&A sections have already passed when it reaches to dev. So master is getting an update every day, but dev is getting an update probably every week or so. And beta is actually something that is holding on the stable information with extra bug fixes before the release. The beta channel or the beta updates happen every month or so. And lastly, we have the stable that I'm using right now. The stable channel is something that gets an update every 3 months. It is the most, let's say, stable channel, so you need to stick with that. When to use which question might come. If you're working with mobile, probably everything that you need is part of stable. So please stick with stable. If you have desktop and web, and then you need some bug fixes along the way, you might be checking out master or dev or beta. You can see which one you need the most according to the bug fix that you want. If your bug fix is not part of beta, then you need to try to stay in dev. If the dev doesn't have what you need, then you need to stay with master. So try to stay in stable. If it doesn't work, try beta. If it doesn't work, try dev and master. Because master is the most delicate one. So whatever you have as a problem, you might get a fix, but at the same time, it might get broken because there might be an API change or so that is not part of what you would be expecting it to be. So now let's run our application on the same web, but at the same time, let's go through what we have created here. So when you create the Flutter project, it will create a library file structure like here. First of all, you can see that there's an Android and iOS, because what we said was important. You are getting something from your native system as a canvas, and you still at default, you still are using whatever it was provided by the ecosystem. So you have Android and iOS for actually getting the information about Android and iOS. Same goes to macOS and web as well, because this is what we decided to support in the beginning, as you might remember. So this macOS, web, Android, and iOS keeps the information for you. Under the lib folder, you will be writing all of your Flutter code. You will be structuring according to what you want, but one thing to keep in mind is Flutter or Dart actually applications start with main function, and main function, whatever your main function is, should be your starting point. Inside the main function, you will have another function called run app. This run app is a special function coming from Flutter, and it accepts something called widget. So what are widgets? Widgets are Flutter's building blocks, you might say. You can think them like they are Legos. You can have a big Lego piece, but at the same time, tiny Lego piece, because this is what widgets are. You can have a button as a widget, but at the same time, you can have your whole application as a widget as part of your system. So that is why we started off with this My App widget. Let's see what My App is. My App is a simple class which is extended from something called stateless widget. When you think about it, we talked about widgets as building blocks, but now we are hearing something new, something called stateless widget. The stateless widget is one of the two important kinds of widget, let's say. There's stateless widget and there's stateful widget. Stateless widget is an immutable widget. So you just create what you need to do, what you need to have inside the stateless widget. And the stateless widget will be actually becoming your building block. You can compose different and gather together different widgets into one big widget and create one single widget. And this, in this case, this is an application widget, came out of composing different screen elements. You can return whatever widget you want. One special widget is returned here. It is called Material App. Material App, Cupertino app, and Widgets app are three important widgets that should be used for basing your application to be used. And they are giving you a chance to have some material or Cupertino components to be easily used, and giving you some predefined options to be used in your application as well. So this way you don't need to write a lot of code. Actually, it comes free for you. Inside the material application, you can decide on the theme of your application. including the theming, you can also have a color palette, and you can change your color palette according to what you have, and you can restart your application, and you can see that it changes automatically. And lastly, you will have your starting point of your application, which is my home page. My home page is the part that you see on screen. It is using something called, sorry for that. It is using something called stateful widget. Stateful widget is, again, an immutable widget, but it has a special object inside called state. State is the set of information that you have on your screen. So whatever you see here, from this number to this text or to this button here, everything is a state. But in our case here, the whole page is one big state to show us one big information right now. And inside the state class, we have some special function called setState. And setState is the real hero here for us, because setState is actually explaining us and telling us that something needs to be recreated when an operation happens. So what happens here is, if someone calls increment counter function, it will call setState function, and inside the setState, this RMS function will be called, and the whole page will be recreated again. But you might be asking, but wouldn't it be a problem to recreate everything from scratch when there's a simple change like this number here? And you would be really right to ask this question. And one of the most important things and one of the biggest advantages of Flutter is actually when you recreate something, when you recreate a page, it just compares the new one with the old one and checks if it can use something. And if it can use something again, it just does it again. It just, uses it again. And if there's something new, then it creates the new one. So it is highly useful, and it is really getting and doing its best for performance. So we will talk about how you can create these and what are these in a minute. One important point is this function. It is called build function. Every state needs to override this function, and this needs to return another widget. Why do we return a widget from another widget? Is we want to, for example, we might want to split down our widgets. We might want to actually compose different widgets into one widget and share it with different places. So when we create one widget, we actually need to use another one. And behind the scenes, it will be using some really, really complicated, but also really amazing architecture to give us the view that we need. Now that we talked about what stateless, stateful widgets are and what Run app is doing, let's write some code. First, let me get rid of this. In the Run app, as I said, we were calling any widget that we need. So we will be calling something called KTalk live coding app. Okay. And as I said, this was wanted me to create a widget here. So I will say stateless widget, name this KTalk live coding app. And after that, I will see that this is returned in a container. When we reload the application, when we restart, we don't see anything, which is perfect because we didn't put anything yet. We just put something called container. Container is a special widget that holds information about the child view, like its size, its padding, its margin, its decoration, which means its color, its border, and so on and so forth. It can do a lot of things. It's a heavyweight object, but it does a lot of things. So if you want, you can use it. But for size and stuff, we will be using a different one. Anyway, now that we have it, as you remember from the previous one, I was suggesting to use Material app because it was helping us with a lot of things. After the Material app is here, I will not do anything like theming or so on because I don't want to confuse you. That is a completely another topic. I will just say home, and I would say KTalk live coding home page. And this will be, again, a stateless widget because I still don't do anything. And in here, I want to do something different. I will use first something called Scaffold. Scaffold is actually a scaffold. It is using our page and splits it into segments. And whenever we give something to that segment, according to material design, it just puts them to the right place. So if you put an app bar, it knows that it is going to be on the top. If you put this floating action point, floating action button, it will just know that it is going to be part of here. So inside the scaffold, the rest of the place left out of these material components will be something called body. And the body will be the place that we actually show the real content. So let's say list view dot builder, okay? And this is a special kind of list view. It will be showing you an infinite list because we will not be putting a number of items here. And I know that in web, creating an infinite list is one of the hardest tasks, but with Flutter, we can create an anonymous function for item builder because one advantage of Flutter is you can actually check out the source code. The item builder is something called index widget builder. Index widget builder is a type definition, which means that it's actually a function that returns a context and an index. I'm here, I'm saying context and an index, and I need to return a child widget here so it can actually understand what's going on here. So I will just say list tile, and this list tile will be showing us, let's say, a simple index number per application. List tile again is a special widget that is used in like Flutter. And one advantage of this is it helps you to put something, or let's put it this way, it helps you to actually put the information related to its own specific positions. What do I mean by this? There's a title, which is showing there's a title, yeah. But you can have, for example, on tap, which is giving it a tapping option. You can have a subtitle, for example, that is going to be shown with a special syntax, or sorry, style, like this is a subtitle, and so on. So it totally is up to you to decide on what do you have or what do you need. You can see that when it is clickable, the pointer is changing as well. And after this, you can see that it doesn't have to be list tile all the time. You can give, for example, some special widget. You can use some special widget called row. Row is one of the special widgets that we use in Flutter. It is actually a sibling of, let's say, something called column. And column is helping you to align your widgets vertically. So you can have multiple widgets aligned in the vertical axis. And row is used for horizontal axis. So row is helping us to create something in the horizontal axis. But now we will be using column. Why do we use column? Is because of, so I will put a list tile here. Actually, list tile will probably break, but I don't care. And I will put something called divider here. So I will just restart, and you can see that now I have some divider and a nice differentiation between my elements. Divider is one of the special widgets again. One thing to keep in mind in Flutter, if you're looking for something, if you're wondering if there is a widget, probably there is. Just write the words for that and you will see that. So you can see that this divider is horizontal. You might be asking, is there a vertical divider? Let's see. See, there's a vertical divider. So you can see that a lot of things are already implemented by Flutter for you to have the option for. So let's add an app byte for the sake of having something nice. I will just say KTalk live coding here and restart the app again. Now you can see that we have a toolbar and everything and all working really great. Now I'm talking about the basics and so on, but whatever you want to do is probably possible with Flutter. Let me give you an example. 2 weeks ago or so, we had a conference in Turkey called Flutter Festival, and we did the website of this festival or conference in Flutter as well. Everything that you see here, like this being the responsive and all these talker views and everything and all the buttons and so on, all of them are written with Flutter. So you can see that all of these options, you can see that the animations are super fast because everything is written with Flutter. So you're seeing the basics now, but trust me, it works very well with other platforms as well. One advantage of this is probably you've seen already how it works on Android, on iOS. If you haven't, it works out of the box really well. But what is really important is I'm not changing anything. I'm not touching anything. So I'm just waiting for it to compile. And it will compile itself into a macOS application. This is really important because it really proves that you write the code once, but at the same time, you are deploying the code to several different platforms. So in the meantime, we wait for this to compile. It already did. So you can see that there's a macOS application working exactly like the web out of the box. So now that we have everything that is around here, why don't we just try to style, like make things more beautiful? Because, sorry, one thing to keep in mind is you might do a lot of things with Flutter, but you might be still needing some library. We will use a library now, but let's go through something first. Pub.dev was, as I said earlier, is the website that we use for Flutter and Dart applications for using packages and libraries. It has more than 15,000 libraries here, and it is getting bigger every day. Whatever you need to write, you can just search it here, and probably you can, for example, say camera, and you can see that there's a camera package from actually Flutter team, so you can use that as well. For making things more easier for the beginners, they have, for example, the popular packages part, the Flutter, like top Flutter packages part, top Dart packages part, and most importantly, Flutter favorites part. This is something really important. There's only 37 packages that has this Flutter favorite badge. And Flutter favorite means there's a council of people consists of Flutter community members, Flutter GDs, and Flutter actually like Flutter team members. They go through the packages and decide if they are worthy enough to be showcased to the newcomers. They go through it, they test it, they check it out, and they actually pick the libraries by hand here so you can use it with trust. You can see that there are several already pointing mechanisms, but still it is always nicer to have one extra experienced eye on this matter. So you can see that you can use a package, any package you want. We will be using something called Google Fonts. Google Fonts is actually a package that has been created by the material design team. It is getting all the packages that is available inside Google Fonts, which is more than 1,000. And it is making it available for you to use inside your application without like having any problem. So how you can use a package? So you can see that there are sections like README, which is explaining what's going on here. You can see some code snippets, etc. There's the change log explaining what has changed along the way. There's an example, which is using example part of the application. Because one good thing about the packages are all of them are open source if you take them from Dartpad Dev. So they're definitely a resource reference to it. And lastly, there's an installing part. It is explaining you how you can install it here, but long story short, you just need to copy the version and the name of it. Thankfully, they put a button here. You can click this button. Now it copied whatever you need to your clipboard. Then you need to go to a file called pubspec.yaml file. This pubspec.yaml file is in your root directory inside your application, and it is keeping information about your application, like its name, its description. If it's a package, it can have a publisher, the version information. So when you're actually sending out the package to the like the Apple Store and so on and so forth, it actually gives you the version number from here. Environment, which means that for the Dart SDK, which version should it use, and so on and so forth, which dependencies it has, and etc. So it can also keep your assets and everything here. Like if you have images or so on, they should be first introduced here, then they should be moved to your application. For using a package, you need to go to your pubspec YAML, and underneath there's dependencies. And in the dependencies, you just need to put whatever you have copied already. Then you need to do pub-get or Flutter pub-get. It will be downloading whatever needs to be downloaded. And after it is downloaded, now you are good to go to use this package. So let's use it. In the material application, in the theme data, like let's go here. You can use this package in many ways. You can directly put this to the text as a style. You can use the name of the package and assign a style to it, or you can just make this part of your application throughout, which is something that we want, right? So what we are going to do is we will do theme, say theme data. Inside the theme data, we will just say something called text theme. So this will change all the possible text with the theme that we're going to be providing now. We will just say Google Fonts. So this is where we use the library. That I like Railway a lot. So I will just say Railway text theme. And I will say theme of context.text theme. This means that it will get the current text theme of the application and create a new one with the Railway font. So let's run the application. After we run the application, it will just download the files again, recreate everything possible. So it is just going to do whatever it needs to do. That is not important. And at the end of the day, it will just show whatever we need to see on the screen. And yeah, in the meantime, if you have any questions about Flutter, or like any other thing, how you can decide, and so on and so forth, I can, please write it down to the chat. And yeah, Tanya will ask those to me. After showing this, I will talk about what you can do to learn Flutter. And yeah, if you have any questions, I will answer those, and we will be good to go. Okay, so yeah, we don't see it because I think it is not installed in my macOS. So if you don't have the font, I think you can't see it. So let's try to run this on web. Just a second. Let me, in the meantime, close this off. Let's run this. As you see, the font is quite different. So let me try to zoom into this. You can see that the font is more subtle, more nicer, because this is where we use Railway. And simply for using it in your application, you just needed to do this change. Cool. So let's go back to the slides one more time. And yeah, just do it. First of all, how you can learn Flutter. You can check out Flutter Team's official YouTube channel. They have something called Boring Show and a lot of educated videos. So please go ahead and check those out. You can learn about the platform. Secondly, they have a Medium page with their news, but at the same time with how you can do certain things. They're really great. And last but not least, Flutter's official documentation is really important, because this is an open source project. You can check out the code, and the code is highly documented. So please check out the documentation and learn about how you can do things. In addition to this, Flutter community has a YouTube channel as well that they hold every Wednesday, something called Hump Day Q&A. So you can ask questions, you can have answers from people, and actually get involved with the community itself. And another point is Flutter community has a Medium page as well, and this page is more special because it is getting all the possible context or assets from the community itself, and all the writers are community members. So it is from all around the world, and they are amazing. Lastly, there's a Flutter community Slack, so you can just go and be part of that Slack, answer questions, get an answer. Also, there's Gitter and Discord as well. You can check those out as well. How you can check it is simply you can go to flutter.dev. Let's go flutter.dev. And in here, there is the Flutter community page that you can see which parts you can be part of. Lastly, there's a course from Angela Yu. It's on Udemy. It is a really great course for beginners. It gets updated quite often, and it is created with the cooperation with the Flutter team. So I recommend this as well. So if you want to learn, start from one point, this is a really great course. And yeah, this is more or less it from my side. Thank you very much for listening to me talk about Flutter. I'm really happy to be part of this. And yeah, if you have any questions, please ask me from this point onward.
Hello again.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge about Flutter and sharing the demo. It was great. And we already have some questions. So the first one, of course, it's predictable about the Nyan Cat indicator, and people are asking which plugin do you use for that?
Yeah. It is Nyan Progress Indicator, and there is another version of it with Mario, the plumber from Atari. It is called Mario Driven Development. So you can use either of that. One of them is Nyan Progress Indicator. The other one is called Mario Driven Development. So pick one.
Thank you. And the next one is which IDE do you recommend? And Android Studio with VS Visual Code.
So it depends on your background. From my perspective, I was coming from Android, and for me, Android was easier. That is why I was first using Android Studio. Then I saw that Android Studio is actually really heavy for my needs, so I moved to IntelliJ IDEA. So if you're coming from Android perspective, Android Studio or IntelliJ IDEA is best for you. If you're a web developer or iOS developer or someone who doesn't have a developer experience or learning something new, VS Code would be nice for you. It is new. It is lightweight. It is easy to learn. So I would definitely recommend with Visual Studio Code if you're new to it.
Great, thank you. The next one about looking for Flutter developers and where is the best place to find them?
So it depends on for which, they say, if you're looking for freelancers or so, I think the best place is always either your network or Flutter community network or simply Upwork or something like this. So first I would go to the communities and ask for them. Secondly, I would say then look for someone on the Upwork with a nice background and you can find them. But if you are looking for full-time Flutter developers, then you need to put out some advertisement for your job, and you can share it on a website called flutter.jobs, I think. So people can actually see it because there's a tweet bot about it, and people would be happy to see it. Right now on LinkedIn, there's more than 10,000 job openings for Flutter, so it is a growing market, and people are going insanely excited about it. So I hope that you can find some on LinkedIn as well, maybe.
Yeah, LinkedIn is a good place. So in the meantime, we have another question. So what are the useful IDE plugins you recommend while coding Flutter to increase productivity?
That is an excellent question, actually. First of all, I would recommend to use something called Flutter Enhancement Suite. It is helping you to create a lot of different code snippets for you out of the box for free, so you can use them. Another thing is I'm using the progress indicator because I like them a lot. And in addition to this, I like testing a lot. And for me, testing means coverage. And for coverage tracking, you can use some like code coverage trackers in your application as well. This is really, really important too. And I think that's it, because Flutter's own plugin is doing a lot of things for you already, and you just need to learn how to use it and how to use DevTools. Okay, I don't hear you. Is it me or? Okay.
No, it's me. Sorry.
Okay, okay. No worries.
Yeah, the problem of 2020 and 21.
Yeah.
So what do you recommend to beginners on Flutter? And the next question is from another person, but they're like connected. What, according to you, should be a good roadmap for Flutter beginners?
Again, like great questions. Like, first of all, I recommend everyone to first be relaxed. Okay, like we were all beginners, so learning takes time. So give yourself some time. How do you learn? First, go through the resources that I talked about. Secondly, find an idea, either yours or something you see out there, and try to implement it. Try to do it, because you will learn better when you actually practice it. Another point is, do not fall for imposter syndrome. People will be knowing more than any of us. People know more than me. And probably I know people. So this chain will not end. You just care for yourself and do whatever you need to do by focusing on yourself. And try to learn, for example, how Flutter works, how widgets work, how complicated can an app go, how you can actually architect your applications. If you go through those, you will be successful. A good roadmap for Flutter beginners would be first learning the basics. What is widget? What is a state? What is state management? And as you go forward, you need to understand how you can do internet connectivity related stuff, API calls. How can you do multi-page stuff? How can you do navigation stuff? And as you go forward, you will be actually getting better and better. So just give yourself some time, find an idea, learn and start from basics and go forward with it.
Great. Thank you for this answer. And we have another one. How complicated could be to combine material and Cupertino in the same project?
I would not try to do those together in the same project, because if you want to have a different view and different implementation for iOS and Android, it would actually at the end turn into two different applications. So if you really, really want to have one iOS app and one Android app, maybe it makes sense to write them separately. On the other hand, in the same project, starting point of like writing these things, it is not super complicated. You can have different workflows. There might be a sharing part of the widgets and the business logic. So it's not super complicated, but it just takes an extra effort.
Makes sense. Okay, I think that we are done with the questions. At least I don't see any of them in the chat anymore. So I would like to thank you one more time for hosting the event today and telling a lot about Flutter. And I want to remind our participants that you can still ask questions to Salih in Twitter, for example, or in GitHub, whatever you prefer. So you can reach out to him. And as well, we will post the video in several days along with the slides that Salih will share with us. Will you?
Yeah, yeah, of course.